Name is Andrew James.
And tell me, run this case down for me. Just kind of tell me what this case has been like. I mean, from the beginning, having to go through all this and everything.
Scott, I can tell you, I remember driving to work that Friday morning. I live off in the north part of the Woodlands, and I take 1488 to 45 to start heading up here to Conroe. And when I got to 1488, I saw all the traffic in the southbound lanes backed up as far as the eye could see. I saw the highway shut down, and I immediately got on the phone and started calling to make sure that I assumed the worst. Turns out it was the worst, and wanted to make sure that someone from our office had been notified and responded to help investigate this crash and assist the Department of Public Safety and whatever other agencies may be involved. Fortunately, Warren had been contacted in the middle of the night, and he was already out there on the scene. When I got to the office, I talked to him, and we both started working on the case immediately from that point. Started trying to find out what I could on this defendant. I was able to find some stuff online. I was able to find her Facebook page and save some things before she was able to take it all down. I actually came across an old MySpace page and found out everything about her losing her high school boyfriend to an intoxication manslaughter case. And from then on, just the fact that, someone who's been through that, who has lived that nightmare themselves and lost a loved one to something like this that's just so senseless and tragic, that person didn't learn enough from that to never put themselves in that situation, has really made this case, it's been my number one priority in terms of vehicular cases, and seeing that we get justice done for these two young folks that lost their lives, and for David Porras, who survived the crash, was never going to be the same. I mean, all of these cases are important to me. All the ones that I handle, they're all important to our office, but this one in particular, just the entire greater Houston area took notice of it because it's what we all woke up to that morning. The news was there, everyone was seeing the highway shut down, and then 48 hours later, almost the identical thing happening again. I mean, it just shocked all of us.
What about, you're able to get on it right away. The availability, getting to those cameras quick enough before those things were erased for the bar, and some of the other areas, the traffic before it was erased.
Scott, this was the investigation in this was a fantastic team effort. The Department of Public Safety did a fantastic job working the crash scene. They put all both vehicles back together with some tow. I believe it was Milstead that helped tow the vehicles back together. Their crash reconstruction and work was phenomenal. And then TABC, without Agent Oscar Williams in this case, the man did a phenomenal job. He went and did a source investigation and did the detective work to find out where she was coming from and what she did that night. And he put together a timeline for us of where she was, who she was with, when she did what she did. So normally in these cases, a lot of times all we have is the crash and the evidence from the crash. And we know that a person's intoxicated, we've got their blood sample, but we don't know where they were coming from unless they tell us. And in this case, Oscar put it all together for us and went back and did that. And combined with Fred Kohler, who was working for North Star for Montgomery County at the time. Fred knows Sergeant Angela Fountain with the Department of Public Safety, and she contacted him. Fred started searching the cameras and was able to find about 6 to 7 seconds of this defendant going the wrong way on the highway.
What about if you had to try this case, say, 10 years ago, without the technology, how much harder would this case been to prove up? Fortunately, I think 10 years ago we still had DNA evidence, but if we didn't have everything that we had, the defense would have been that she wasn't driving, and we might have had trouble proving that because no one ever saw her in the driver's seat. We wouldn't have had her doing 21 drinks on video and dancing around for hours and having fun and having a good time. We wouldn't have had her cell phone with the wealth of information that was on there. All the various messages and pictures and photographs that really just let us know who she really was and not the facade that she and her family and friends would have put on in court. I'm sure that she's remorseful for what she did, but it shouldn't take having to kill two people to realize that the way you're living your life and things that you're doing isn't the best thing for you or for anybody else. But, the families, seeing these families day after day, talking to them, they said y'all were constantly back and forth emails, talking to them almost daily on the phone, keeping them up with everything that was going on. How is that interacting with them like that? Is it tough to make it tough too? I'm emotionally drained at this point. I'm about 6 years into my career here, and this is the first case that I've handled where I've had multiple victims on a case like this. Just keeping track of everybody, of Nicole Adams' parents, who are two of the sweetest folks I think I've ever met. And the difficulties that they have gone through, losing their daughter, plus Mrs. Adams' own health problems over the past year as well. Travis's parents, Mr. Saunders and his mother, Michelle Chisholm, they have had to live every parent's nightmare. Travis's sister had a little boy born about a week before mine, and that's part of the reason it's kind of hit close to home with me on this case. And then David is just one of the sweetest, nicest individuals I've ever met. The nurses at Memorial Herman told me how sweet he was and how he made a few of them cry, and one of them, she was so sad, so much empathy, just pain, one that she didn't really treat him because he was just such a beautiful person, such a wonderful person, that it broke her heart. And my heart breaks for these families, but I think from talking with them that they've gotten a good measure of closure from this. They all seem to be very, very pleased with the outcome, and they're very grateful for all of the hard work that all of the first responders, all of the hospital staff, all of the police officers and investigators, and just everyone has done in this case to try to get justice for them and their families.
Jury.
We didn't talk to him, Scott. I'm sure that it's an unenviable position to be an easy decision, what we asked them to do, but they reached the right decision. 15 years on both counts for Travis and Nicole, and then 8 years. That shows that they felt some remorse. They gave her, they didn't just say 20, 20, and 10. They gave off 3 years because I think, to an extent, I think she had some genuine remorse, and the jury saw that. And I definitely believe that the jury got it right in this case, that they made a very tough decision, but they made a very correct decision, and I really believe justice was served in this case. It's a tragedy all around. I feel horrible for the defendant's family. No parents have to go through what they're going through either, but unlike Mr. Saunders and Miss Chisholm and Nicole Adams' parents, they can still go visit her. They're still going to be able to see their daughter and talk to her.
What about the demeanor of Nichol Baukus or something? And even during the time prior to this, listen to jailhouse recordings. Listen to her at the hospital and on the ambulance today.
I'm sure she's really wishing she could do things over again. I'm sure she's very disgusted with her own conduct. And although I think some of her tears during the trial were mostly about her, I'm sure that some near the end were also for David and Nicole and Travis and their families. As Warren said in the trial, in his closing argument, choices have consequences. And unfortunately, the choices she made, the consequences that she's going to be spending at least probably the next 34 years in prison before she's even eligible to get out. That's a long time. But it's a consequence to such a tragic choice that she made. And even though she didn't intend to hurt anybody, she did. Families are devastated from this. And hopefully people will learn, people will be responsible and not make those same choices.
Now, since the finding of a deadly weapon with the vehicle, what in the judge's consecutive stacking of, as far as parole, she's got to complete the first 20, or she's eligible? I'm sorry, the first 20.
Normally, if Judge Seiler had ordered the sentences to run consecutively, it would have been 15 years, and 8 years, all running at the same time, which means she would have been eligible for parole because of the affirmative finding of the deadly weapon from her plea of true to that after 7.5 years, because half of 15, obviously. When Judge Seiler ordered the sentences consecutively, she fully discharged the first sentence, which is count 1, which is 15 years, then fully discharged the second sentence of count 2, which is 15 years, then she can become parole eligible on count 3 4 years into it because it's an 8-year sentence. So 4 out of 14.
So she's looking at 34 years.
34 years before she's even eligible for parole, she's going to do the vast majority of her sentence. Just for things that she
had been convicted of murder of one count and gotten a life sentence, she'd be parole eligible after 30 years.
But basically, she got more than she would have for murder.
She got, because of the stacking, she got a couple more years than she would have for a straight first-degree murder conviction. Not a capital murder, which was about honestly, for a normal aggravated sentence on a life sentence, you're eligible for parole after 30 years.
I mean, I've known you for several years. This one looked like a roller coaster. I mean, I've seen you over this week, almost like ready for a vacation this week.
I'm emotionally drained at this point, Scott. My heart breaks for these families. Like I said, David is one of the nicest, sweetest people in the world. He almost broke my back giving me a hug afterwards. But and part of the reason this one hits close home, it's kind of close to home for me, is because back early December, I lost my dad. Nothing tragic, like he just collapsed and passed away. And it's given me a new perspective on what these families go through to lose someone that they care about at the drop of a hat. It really brings it home to me. And that was actually something that I was able to bond with Travis's family and Nicole Adams' parents and David about as well. And both the last time I met with the Adams family before this trial, both Mr. Adams and I talked about how difficult it was for Father's Day this past year, because it was the second Father's Day for me as a dad, first one without mine, and it was the first one for him without his daughter, without his baby. I gotta say, Judge Seiler tried a very efficient case. He had us scrambling at times to get things together, which sudden change in plea mid-trial. But we're happy that he granted our motion to stack the sentences, to order them to run consecutively. And I think he did that because I believe the jury probably wanted that, and that Judge Seiler is very concerned about these types of cases and wants to do what he can do when it's put before him, someone's convicted of one of these, to try to make this community safer. And he's very serious about that. He's been involved in reviewing warrants for the no refusal program, and he cares about victims. He cares about giving defendants a fair trial. He held us to our burden. He pushed us and didn't cut us any breaks, but he understood the gravity of this case, obviously, and the impact of the community, and the families are very grateful that he granted that motion.
What's your teammate?
I'm sorry?
What's your teammate on this case?
It's always fun trying a case with Warren, and he's always does such a great job. He's done this for so many years and handled so many of these cases. It's I mentioned that this defendant's phone was just such a wealth of knowledge to be able to find out stuff about her. Warren has so much knowledge about these types of cases and knows so much about them that I've learned a lot working with him. We've tried several cases together now, and I like to think hopefully one day he'll let me pick the jury on one of these cases we try together. But otherwise, it seems like I do all the hard work, and he tries to get all the camera time.
I know.
Yeah.
Just kind of, Montgomery County. We're still getting the drunks. We're still getting 50 to 100 every week. Do you think this is going to slow anything down at all? People seeing this?
I think it will for some people. And if there's 1, 2, 10 lives saved because of this, if 10, 20, however many people think twice, because these are the types of cases that unfortunately are committed by you and me and everybody else. It's, there's an old saying that a murderer is not going to have a jury of his peers. He's not going to have 12 people on the jury who killed somebody. If someone DWI, they're going to have 6 people that have probably proven when they shouldn't have before. And this is such a preventable crime. It is so easy to avoid it. All you have to do is just be responsible. You're not in any way opposed to people going out and having a good time. But you have to be responsible about it. If you're feeling the effects of alcohol, you do not need to drive because you are legally intoxicated.
cab, towing your car with tipsy toe or anything like that in Milstead is so much cheaper than getting registered to DWI. And it's sure as heck a lot better than spending 38 years in prison.
Think you'll ever get the manufacturers to start putting breathalyzers in vehicles, standard equipment?
I don't know. And, it's one of those things that if something like that happens, there'll still be ways around it. And it's still not going to do anything about driving that are intoxicated on pills. We as a society, as a community, are responsible to each other. That's the whole point of society. We give up our rights for the protection of society. And your right to go out and have fun and do whatever you want and drive your car around stops when it gets near my car and when it gets to the tip of my nose. Because your right to have fun is my right freely. And we have to think about each other and stop just thinking about ourselves. Think about how my actions affect the community. Because we're all in this together. We're all citizens of this county together. We're all citizens of Texas together and of this country together. And we need to think about each other and be responsible to each other and for each other. I'm ready to go home.
assigned juror. We'll knock on the door when we reach the break. Randall Williams is gonna go with one of my bailiffs, okay? You're gonna wait for my foyer. We're in recess.
All rise.